Sue Minahan.
Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests bring you leading-edge astrology conversations through a journey of soul growth patterns connecting astrology's energetic cycles. Get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello, I'm Sue Rose Minahan, founder of Talk Cosmos, Conversations Awakening the Authentic Self for Soul Growth. And today is Sunday, October 23. And we are celebrating the Scorpio new moon that's happening in 2 days. Yesterday was the beginning of a 100-year cycle with Venus when it conjunct the sun for a Venus star point, something that people are beginning to wonder, what does that mean? What is that? It's a point. It's about relationships because it's in Libra and it's going to be following us at some point. But today is a Scorpio solar eclipse when the moon shields the light of the sun and the lights go out to reboot. It happens twice a year with the sun. And it's one of those rhythms that connect us. And where it is in the chart, always that matters. As far as it offers a window to let go and break away from the past, because something better in Scorpio wants to feed you, wants to answer that hunger that you might have for something deep and passionate that gives you life, a resource. Okay, no more to be said because we are now ready for archetypal symbols.
Synthesizing the current archetypal new moon energies through weaving symbol systems such as Sabian Symbols, numerology, Mayan novel energy days, or even tarot, connecting to the astrological data and concepts for planets and cosmos. This is your Archetypal Symbols panel.
I'm Sue Rose Minahan, the founder of Talk Cosmos, an eclectic evolutionary astrologer, consultant, certified color energy life coach, vice president of the Washington State Astrological Association, member of Kepler Astrology Toastmaster Club, of a Dwarf Planet University diploma and AA with music degree. I love mythology, philosophizing, collaboration. I'm an artist, writer, a perpetual student of life.
I'm Elizabeth Liz Machette, a professional astrologer, intuitive, numerologist, and tarot reader. I'm a certified sacred healing counselor, providing nurturing, in-depth consultations for individuals and couples. I'm an author, blogger, speaker, and international Reiki master and teacher. I create safe space in which to explore the deeper patterns of your life, to clarify your current circumstances and help you find your best path forward.
And I'm Justin Crockett-Elsie, an archetypal astrologer, teacher, and author. I combine both Western ancient astrology and modern psychological astrology with Eastern Vedic astrology. And I specialize in predictive, electional, and karmic astrology for individuals and couples. I'm a certified aromatherapist, an essential oil specialist, and an herbalist, and I offer remedial modalities of plants for psychological life issues to empower clients with compassionate healing. I also do in-depth astrological research into arcane astrological concepts, focusing on the mystical, occult side of astrology.
Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift." And that's why it's called the present. Da-da! I always like, get the bugles blowing. Today's subject centers on some interpretation of the Sabian symbols, which we will explain a little bit more about. These are mystical metaphors, nostalgia, community, ceremony. Essentially, the way we brought that, or I brought that title up, was that we're breaking from a nostalgic past for cooperative joint efforts, including ceremony. But it is all about relationships. So, hello, Justin. Hello, Liz.
Hey, it's good to be back.
Yes.
Yep.
It's like, it totally is. And I think we are going to start with numerology. Is that right? Maybe we should get these slides up and we'll just jump right in. So there we are, folks. For those people that are on podcast, if you get a chance to see the YouTube, you can see all the glory. Here, this is credits to Liz, who provides all this great material, and I arrange it. And this is how to contact everybody. So here we are, number 2.
So we chose the number 2 because the sun, moon, and Venus are at 2 degrees. And the number 2 is about duality, relationships, cooperation, partnerships, moon, the peacemaker, and very intuitive.
Because it's self and others, and because peacemaker with Venus, I would think, is how we were thinking of that. And of course, yin and yang is part of that duality and relationships. It all ties together. Justin?
Exactly.
Yep. Totally agree with what Liz says. Yep. Definitely.
Okay. Well, then so 2 is really a fascinating number because it really has a lot to do with Aries and Libra to begin with in astrology. And here's a tarot card for 2, the High Priestess, moon mystery. That's why it was chosen, I'm sure, is because of the moon, and mystery because it keeps changing, I would suppose, and things may not be how they appear. Divine wisdom, knowledge hidden behind the veil. I'd like to hear more.
Well, she holds a lot of secrets and knowledge, the High Priestess. She has like a direct line to whether it's God or goddess or a higher power or whatever you might call it. How about you, Justin?
Well, yeah, just a little bit of history here. Before she was called the High Priestess, it was the Papapes, the female pope, and so this is the partner to the Hierophant or the male pope, so it's that divine feminine spirituality that we're all tapping into with this moon. It's amazing.
It is. I know that pulling a card in the High Arcana, she's a major arcana. She's quite revered, if that's your card, for instance. If you read that, there is. But I like this thank you for both your takes. Well, then the next card of focus we have is Mars, because looking at Scorpio, it's a traditional ruler. And Liz, you brought up the Tower because Mars is going to have some action, and it's a breakdown, ending, rebuilding. The Tower is often misrepresented. I know that. It's a release. There's 2 people there falling. One is looking at what is happening and letting go of the crown, and the other one's like, no, I'm not seeing anything. I'm holding on to my crown. I'm going to continue being the same thing. But it is a release. So we have that choice, I put, of hanging on or letting go.
Well, and it also goes with the Sabian symbol that we're going to talk about later, is the nostalgic. It's like holding on or, change. If we're comfortable where we're at, we don't initiate to make changes easily. Sometimes it's just time to change. And so it's going to be hard to hold on because we have to go with the change. We have to evolve, transmute.
Well, I love that. But I love the fact, too, it's Mars, because in Gemini right now, which we'll discover, there's so much diversity. There's lots of opportunity coming our way. Justin, did you have something, too, that you wanted to add?
No, I think she stated it right. And I like how she used Liz used the word transmute, because that's really what Scorpio is calling us to do. It's kind of giving us it's here we are presented with another change, another end of a cycle with the moon, right? And it's giving us a technique and says, hey, you got to let go. One door closes, one has to open, right?
Yep. So here we have the great Scorpio, which the sign of which this solar eclipse is in, with the South Node in Scorpio. It's within 15 degrees when this solar eclipse occurs, when the sun's light is blocked, which normally is always happening with a new moon, but it doesn't become an eclipse. It's only when it has that orbital junction with the South Node, which is the path of the moon and the sun. So the point is, death can be misrepresented many times. There's the physical death, but it does represent such a phase of depth, ending and beginnings. So release, transformation, transmutation, and I added regeneration.
Well, that's good. And it can also, with an eclipse, even though this one's a partial one, it can be the death of the light of the sun for a moment in time. It could be, a half an hour, just depending. But, so it's like yesterday has died. We can't get yesterday back. So it doesn't have to be a physical death, even though in the card it shows, some people laying there on the ground and it looks like somebody's died. But it doesn't have to be a physical death at all.
No.
Yep.
And for those people that have experienced possible losses, we do extend our compassion greatly to your situation, because we can't know everybody's life. I know that it can be quite a sensitive, a lot involved. But regardless of what we're letting go, when you think of all the habits and the world that we've built around that perspective, perhaps it can seem really like a death waiting for something new to come. So it can be quite heavy too, even on a non-physical terms.
Well, and thinking on the Tower card and the Death card, I believe in Italy the volcano is going off, or there's been rumblings, there's earthquakes, and also in Hawaii that there's been a lot of earthquakes around the volcanoes. So, there's some activity going on in there. But as it erupts, it creates new land. So
yes,
and regeneration.
And that could be, again, we have these powerful aspects occurring between the planets. Like just yesterday, we had that Venus star point where the sun and Venus are so cazimi in this. For 150 years, it has not been in Libra, but at the same time, cazimi within 2 minutes was Haumea, which is an outer planet, a dwarf planet, which always involves absolute transformational transmutation. Haumea being of Hawaii, that's what reminded me of birthing. She birthed Pele, thank you, through Kilauea, the volcano. So yeah, birthing is a process.
Right. Yeah. And Haumea is the goddess of fire and earth. And so it's like really easy, the symbolism in a volcano to see, it is earth, but it's also fire because the lava and all the energy that comes out of a volcano. So that's always a good analogy.
Yes. And I will add, for those people interested in Haumea or thinking about it, she birthed everything. Haumea, Pele was the only one that she birthed as a natural through the womb, as the mythology goes. Everything else was from her leg or her arm or something, but birthing. So you can birth in many ways. All right, Sabian symbols. This slide we keep up every session. Elsie Wheeler, a clairvoyant, 1925, with the acclaimed astrologer Marc Edmund Jones, similar to the wonderful English astrologer Marc Jones these days. But a single Sabian symbol represents it's an image, a spiritual essence for each of the 360 degrees of the entire 12-sign zodiac horoscope, offering a spiritual insight and expression of energies. Shall I go next?
Yes. So
here is the chart. And we're talking about the East Coast chart on October 25th in 3 days, 2 days. And in the morning at 6 a.m., that's 6:48 a.m. and 30 seconds. So it has a rising sign of 23 degrees Libra, which we will discuss.
And for those of the people that don't know where the rising sign is, it's at 9 o'clock if you looked at the clock, so that's where the ascendant, and that's the eastern horizon.
Yes, on a standard clock, the wall clock. And what was I going to say? Oh, that Venus rules that ascendant, and that as Justin had brought up, there is a focus on relationships immediately, just knowing that it is in Libra.
Right.
And that.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to quickly say that Scorpio, but the sign of the solar eclipse in Scorpio also involves Mars and Pluto as traditional and modern ruler. Yes. Justin.
Oh, no. And I was just going to piggyback on what Liz was saying, for those who are new to astrology, that the ascendant is the important thing to look at, and pretty much first in the chart, because it is the eastern horizon, and it sets the tone for the whole chart. A lot of times it's our right at the point of birth there.
Beautiful. Wow. Here we are, ascendant 23 degrees Libra, which also involves the part of fortune. And Liz, you're so brilliant. You discovered that it's always in a new moon conjunct the ascendant. There's a formula of it that involves a sun, moon, and ascendant. And for new moons, it's always at the ascendant. So it's also at 23 degrees Libra. And Mercury is immediately behind 1 degree at 22. So go ahead, Liz.
Okay, so we'll read those all together. So Libra at 21, a Sunday crowd enjoying the beach. Revivifying contact with the mother force of nature and of social togetherness, the collective unconsciousness. Do you want me to keep reading, or does anybody want to make
and I will
comment?
say to people that when you look at Sabians, because spirit really is a change, the world, everything is change. And so therefore we look at the degree previous, that degree, and the degree afterwards. Linda Hill calls it the karma, the Sabian, and the quest. That's Linda with a Y, besides Dane Rudhyar, which is also two of the great sources. There's many for these Sabians besides Edmund Jones. So therefore, because we're spanning this close conjunction at the ascendant between 22 and 23, it's choosing 21. So go ahead, you do the next one, then I guess I can do the last two or something.
Okay, Libra 22 is a child giving birds a drink at a fountain. The concern of simple souls for the welfare and happiness of less evolved beings who thirst for life renewal.
So that would be the 22 degrees, and also for the Mercury, and then just prior to the ascendant. So the actual ascendant of 23 degrees, and then where Mercury is headed to, is Chandelier's voice heralds sunrise, Libra 23. And the keynote that you indicated was a creative and joyous response to life's processes and renewal. Seems indicative of the whole sun-moon experience. And 24, where this ascendant is actually leading towards in the quest, is a butterfly with a third wing on its left side for 24 Libra. And the keynote thoughts to keep in mind is the ability to develop for inner strengthening new modes of response to basic life situations.
So these all to me speak of, some new beginnings and rejuvenation, renewal, transformation. So it's just all repeating with the tarot cards and the numerology and the astrology. It's like talking and reinforcing that.
I would agree with Liz. I think it's giving us sort of a snapshot of what is to come, what's happening, what is to come, and how important relationships are, and to have that inner stability. For people that are new to astrology, the part of fortune gives you the insight into how a person, what makes them happy, or what's the happiness. And of course, that part of fortune in Libra is all about intimate relationships, or intimate associations, I should say, friends and everything else. So I totally agree with what Liz was, her thoughts on that.
23 Libra also happens to be a fixed star, Spica, SPICA, one of the brightest stars used for navigation. It's a very fortunate star also. So there's that energy involved with this, because change, and particularly when one's letting go of deep-seated hidden things that become evident, can be quite a trial, but that's rather a bit of a promise, I think.
You know, can I also say one thing?
Mhm.
I think it's
Yes.
really positive about this, that, you know, here we were dealing with, you know, the death card and all this scorpionic energy. I think the positive thing coming out of this is that we're not going through this change alone, and that we've got people around us. For the most part, a lot of us do. We just sometimes don't recognize we've got people around us that we can, that are going through changes at the same time, that we could lean on, or it's all about, you know, going through this change with other people and not alone. I think that's the positive
And
thing.
that's beautiful, Justin, because as we go ahead with the Sabians, that seems to be very evident, especially for the actual solar eclipse. And what I notice here is, if you think of a crowd enjoying the beach, childs and birds at a fountain, a chandelier's voice with the sunrise, even a butterfly, all this is like incorporating the self with the joyfulness of somehow experiencing life, just life. There is that, yeah, throughout it all. Okay, so we have here, as you wizards know and have indicated to me, the MC, which is a midheaven, which is 26 Cancer. Liz?
Yes, and the midheaven is at the top of the chart. So we have Cancer 25. A willful man is overshadowed by a descent of superior power. The response of spiritual forces to the integration of personality through positive, willful endeavors. And then maybe
Yeah,
Justin
so-
wants to read to the next one.
Yeah.
I can't. It's too small.
Okay,
Oh,
that's
I'll
fine.
okay.
go ahead. You go, Liz. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Guests are reading in the library of a luxurious home. The transference of social privilege to the level of intellectual enjoyment.
And I will jump in here. That was Cancer 26. So, in other words, folks, that is the actual
Midheaven.
sign. Well, it is a sign, but I'm just trying to think of a Sabian. It's not really, the Sabian is the next one, Cancer at 27, where it's going towards a violent storm in a canyon filled with expensive homes. And the keynote indication of this is it's a confrontation with a social upheaval demanding the reconsideration of static values, which is another part. You know, Cancer is always involved with security, and of course with Venus, which rules the Libra, it can also involve the financial elements, but it's values. You know, Taurus is value, the other sign that rules Venus. I'm just thinking of the themes that are going here. But this is like, so in other words, the midheaven, that's where we want to participate in the, a lot of people say career, but it's not always career, but it's how we're participating with the social structures of life. Is, let's interpret this. Let's make it, bring it home.
I sometimes like to, and I'm curious what Liz thinks. I sometimes think of the midheaven as really what ultimately the soul's trying to accomplish. You know, what is that ultimate higher lesson, or what is the soul trying to accomplish?
Well put. So what would you say here if with that? I like that. Yes. Justin, about the
I'd be
Cancer
curious what
willful.
Liz thinks about this.
Okay, go ahead, Liz.
I want to hear
Onward.
Liz.
Well, it's like I would say with the 25 Cancer, the superior powers, that could be our rulers. And then the 26 Cancer, reading in a library. So I would say it's educating ourselves. And the 27-degree Cancer of violent storms, which we know we're having earth changes here in Seattle. We've just had our first rain after about 4 months. So it's like environmental things taking place. And it's like, how do we take care of ourselves and the environment?
And I would agree with that. And I would just add, being a Cancer myself, I there's something here about how we are dealing with the change emotionally. You know, that integrating of that the personality and positive, healthy emotions through the change is what I would
right
add to
off,
that as well.
that's a good point, because right off the bat at 25 degrees, it's saying that there is, but but to me, looking at this, it's interesting. It's spiritual forces that we're integrating, but through a positive actions. And then that Gesser reading, it's that social privilege to the level of intellectual. So in other words, if we are integrating something, it appears that it's to our benefit, as far as, because there's privileges involved, and it's on, and life isn't all intellectual by any means, but if we can understand more, it does help guide us. But then it is really, this is, I think, a complex degree. That's my take on it, because it's not a simple thing. It's not like a full story changing. There's that confrontation with social upheaval. So there's a lot of other, the very first time it's overshadowed by a descent of superior power. Well, superior power could also be the spiritual, here. And so they're trying to rise to the occasion. And I guess maybe in doing so, then having to change society too. Would you both say that possibly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, marching along. I feel like here we are back to our great eclipse chart, 6:48 in the morning, Washington, D.C. for the nation. And we are now looking at where the arrow is, the 2 degrees Scorpio, which is the exact, no minutes, 2 degrees, 0 minutes. And Venus just at 2 degrees, 39 minutes. So here we go.
Venus is still in the heart of the sun. So that's really a cool thing, because she's not quite Kazemi anymore, but she's still in the heart of the sun until it's 1 degree. So the moon, sun, and Venus at 2 degrees, we start out with Scorpio 1, a crowded sightseeing bus on a city street, expanding one's social horizon to experience the collective achievements and new ways of life. And Scorpio 2, a delicate bottle of perfume lies broken, releasing its fragrance. The accidental nature of opportunities that impel one to break away from a past, the remembrance of which is still poignant and cherished.
Poignant. Oh, what a nice word. Scorpio 3, which is the quest, where it's headed, or we could, anyway. House raising party in a small village enlists the neighbors' cooperation. The keynote is a feeling of community. So this really is the soul of the chart in many ways, right? This is the Scorpio 2 degrees, a little before, a little after.
Well, and I will say that we've been probably expanding our views and ways of life already. I mean, that's kind of been happening. Like, we were in lockdown for a little while, and now we're not in lockdown from the COVID. We're past that. And so, and I like the perfume bottle because it reminds me of aromatherapy, which I know Justin is familiar with essential oils. And so the smells, whether it's cooking or a flower or a perfume, it like brings up things, when it just brings up memories, let's say memories. And then the community, I like the community, like engaging the help of others. So I think we need the help of other people.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I think what's interesting is that this is good. I always look at those first degrees of Scorpio or whatever sign it is as sort of the ace of the whole constellation. And, so we look at this 1 degree that's this intensity. It's the ace of all that scorpionic energy that wants this intense widening of experience. And what better planet to have right there with it but Venus, which is about desires, and so I think this is really intensely pushing us to change and to move out of this it's part of this post-pandemic period.
Yeah, and what I love is, again, it's heading towards that community. And I know that it's been mention over and over again, just coming up to this, the idea that we're not alone. Justin, you were bringing that up, that, this sense of togetherness. And of course, Libra itself is the ascendant, is like myself and another. You're thinking about another person. So here, actually having a community, which is potent. And one last thought about, I agree that that image has really remained with me about the perfume, because I used to I love aromas, and they, like music, they just bring back so much, like whole pictures. But the fact is one is leaving anything, which we all have with COVID and we continue to do. I know I experience this very consciously. There's sometimes a sweetly held, cherished is a great word, of a memory that one holds yet. So I think this is pretty powerful. It's shall we go on to our break?
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll be right back. This is Archetypal Symbols with Justin Crockett, Elsie, and Elizabeth Mouchette, and myself, Sue Rose Minahan. Talk Cosmos for the 2 degrees Scorpio eclipse. And we'll be back finishing this spiritual account and story. See you again.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the yin period of Scorpio, traditionally ruled by Mars, now ruled by Pluto. By departing a cycle based on comparison between extreme energies finding balance, Scorpio commits a relationship to exchange resources, experiencing power and powerlessness for the purpose of soul growth transformation. As a fixed water sign that is extreme, intense, and secretively deep, Scorpio's passionate nature questions the psychology and mystery concerning life and death.
This is Martha Norwalk. Every Sunday morning, beginning at 9 a.m., thanks in part to NewProSupplements.com, we cover the world of animals. This week, it's an encore presentation of Animal World. Tune in to hear our last healing show with Dr.
Talk Cosmos brings you leading-edge astrological conversations with hour-long programs each week on KKNW. The show goes live every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on Facebook and YouTube, along with daily chats throughout the week on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure you click like and subscribe buttons so you can get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or, if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. So, grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Talk Cosmos is celebrating its 6th season and has a special gift for everyone listening to the show, a free mini transit reading from your natal chart. This reading can help you discover your life path forward and make you aware of current opportunities and challenges. Talk Cosmos Kaleidoscope Visions panel invites you to participate in this learning experience and to interact with the astrologers reading your chart in 2023 during the monthly Kaleidoscope Visions show. Schedule your mini transit reading and find more information about the panel at talkcosmos.com. We look forward to connecting with you for a free natal chart mini transit reading during the monthly Kaleidoscope Visions show at 1 p.m. Pacific on Talk Cosmos.
Broaden your horizons. You'll be amazed at all the topics we cover on Alternative Talk 1150.
Okay, we're back. Now, before we get started, I want to ask both of you, just if you have anything coming up immediately. Justin, what have you that maybe people might want to share in? need
Not
to
really,
get
not
you.
too much. Just I'm just really knee deep in doing consultations, predictive for the coming year for people. So that's basically what I'm
Okay.
doing.
And I know you're revamping your website and that you have a class, but that all that will happen. So that's good.
Yeah.
And Liz, I know that you've got a book club, but what about this talk about maybe getting a community meeting that might be happening? I mean, a conversation, discussion period.
In January, I'm going to start a group, and Sue and Justin kind of assist me with that, of an astrological topic once a month on the second Thursday of the month. And I'll have more information on that next month for everybody. And I'm working on some classes for the beginning of the year too. So more information to come.
Oh, goody. Well, it sounds good. I'm in the moment of writing, and we'll see what happens because I have a book in mind. But then sometimes I think I need to start actually writing more blogs and comments and things. So, but with Mars and Gemini right now, aren't we all? It's just like, my goodness. Well, let's jump right back to our story. We actually did very well with the chart. We did, here's our chart again. And we've done the ascendant, that eastern point where the light comes in, births a chart. We're in relationships. It's 23 with Spica, the fixed star. It's going to have, well, rest assured, some fortuitous energies. And Mercury's right in there in its brainstorm. It's also at 22. And then we have the midheaven, which, as Justin well put, it's where we want to, and I can never say it as well, but want to be involved with how we're going to show ourselves in the community of structured social groups. And that's in Cancer. It's going to have feeling. It's going to have a story. It's going to have roots. It's going to change. And it's going to incorporate the outside world because of its location, which is not just in our private world, but with other people. So then we jumped into the actual solar eclipse, which is right there in the first house of self for the entire country, as this chart represents back in DC. And it's more relationships, intense. It's like consummation. And is it working for us? Like, we want to have it support us. So that's where we were talking, because Venus is in there too, showing the way underground, like mining our values. So unless somebody has something more to say, shall we go on and see what other yes, go ahead. Planets.
So yes, about the relationships, and Scorpio's like taking a deep look at what those relationships are, and are those still sustainable? Is it even, do I still want to go there? If not, you can work on it to improve it, or maybe it's time to start letting go of some of those relationships and really work to make time and open the door for things that you want to work on or be involved in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Really.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating that Venus is so closely united with it. It's very powerful. And, there is that mythology of Inanna back in Mesopotamia and early years, 5,000 years ago, where she descends because Venus, as a planet called the star, is either bright at night for long periods or less in the morning, and then absent for times. She has a very circular orbit. But the point is that in this story of Inanna, she sheds clothing as she must descend to visit her sister, and it's the clothing represent parts of herself that of meaningfulness, that she's getting to her core. So at any rate, that is what, in a sense, we're doing, I think, in Scorpio, is got our flashlight. We're down there figuring out, what didn't I see that's stumbling me? I'm going to change it. Okay.
So we're going to Mars at 25 degrees of Gemini, and Mars is stationing right now, and on the 30th goes retrograde. And so 24 Gemini, children skating over frozen village pond. use of inhibiting circumstances for the development of character and a transcendent approach to the environment.
And I can read the next one. I actually brought it up larger now if you want me to.
Good. All right. Goody.
So Gemini 25 is a gardener trimming a large palm trees, bringing under control nature's power of expansion, or keyword being pruning.
That's good. Well, I suppose I'll do Gemini 26, where it's headed. Frost-covered trees against winter skies, sort of where you are there, possibly, Justin, back in New York. Keynote, the revelation of archetypal form and essential rhythm of existence.
Well, and it's interesting, 24 and 26, a frozen pond and frost-covered trees kind of speak of the winter season. So I find that very interesting. And I have to laugh about trimming a palm tree because if you trim very much back, you could easily kill a palm tree. But I think what they're referring to is, the dead palm leaves is that they're taking them out before that they fall out. So, but I had to laugh about that.
Well, it is, because if you don't,
go
ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say palm trees, having lived down in Mexico and then even here in Hawaii, but more in Mexico, they're not always trimmed and they hang because the tree keeps building and it's always at the top, but the dead ones just hang. And I have seen palm trees with the entire tall, because they can grow very tall. 40 feet, easily. And the whole thing is covered with these fronds, which they're called, down. And of course, then the rodents and whatnot can climb up and down and whatnot. But the aesthetics. So it is.
Yeah. I was going to say, because I have personal experience with these Sabian symbols, because this is my Mercury. So, I always tell people, if you have these, it really kind of speaks to, because Gemini is about communications and our thinking, our mind. It's very mercurial. So there's something that in this period with Mars in this, that we're going to encounter things that we have to confront mentally, and that pruning, I always tell people, it's like clearing the hard drive. I have to clear the brain. I have to just clean it out, prune it, clean it out of what I'm thinking, let go of those thoughts. And so this is these three Sabian symbols I'm intimately aware with. It's kind of always about reassessing your thinking, letting go of old thoughts, and you will go through some things that change your perspective or your thinking. That's how I've experienced these three Sabian symbols.
I like that. Yep, pruning. Liz, I think you had something, a thought.
Well, I just like the frozen pond, because maybe you were going to take your little battery operated little boat down and you wanted to run it on the pond, but now you have to adjust, and now you could, if it was frozen good enough, you can skate on it. So it's like it has a multiple use depending on the environment. So I just love the environmental connection there.
Well, Mars at 25 degrees, as you were saying, it's stationary and it's holding there until it has that apparent retrograde, which will be on the 30th, is a very strong degree. So it's true. And it's not far. Yes, I'm experiencing this too. So we also have Pluto, which is the modern ruler of Scorpio. I love Pluto. And it's 26 degrees Capricorn. It's been in Capricorn since 2008 and will continue until March of next year, when it goes into Aries for a bit, then finally in 24, it'll stay in Aquarius. But we have the degree 25, which is just before, 26, which it is, and 27, which is headed. Go ahead, Liz. Start us off.
Okay, with Capricorn 25, a store filled with precious Oriental rugs. And the keynote is the use of cultural and artistic processes as a means to enhance personal comfort and appreciation.
And Justin?
And Capricorn 26 degrees is a nature spirit dancing in the iridescent mists of a waterfall. Keynote being the ability to perceive the hidden and creative spirit of natural phenomenon.
Ooh, that sounds like fun. Capricorn 27. where it's headed, pilgrims climbing the steep steps leading to a mountain shrine. Keynote, the ascent of the individualized consciousness to the highest realizations reached by the spiritual leaders of his culture. Oh my goodness. So there's hope yet. Anyway, I suppose, yeah, how can we tie these together, going from which one looks like the material part, right? It's precious oriental rugs. Those are what have a lot of value from a cultural and artistic, but then it goes to the nature dancing, which is like, that's really beautiful, iridescent in a waterfall. So it's like the hidden part. And then it goes, the people decide. I mean, I'm just recapping this, eager to hear the two of you climbing this momentous mountain to reach something of sacredness.
Well, to me, it reminds me of evolving. It's like we're here now, and it's like then we go to the next step and like be aware of our natural environment where we've kind of lost that over the generations. But then it's like to even climb higher to a spiritual realm, so to speak.
Yeah, there's a clicking. Is there a clicking somewhere? Is that me?
No, that was me. Sorry, it was the
okay.
pen. You caught me. You caught
You're
me.
climbing those mountains.
Yeah.
I heard you.
So, you know, because Pluto moves so slow, you know, I think these Sabian symbols kind of are like the longer theme, the long game of what's going on here. You know, not just this moon, but the past 3 or 4 moons and the next 3 or 4 moons. This is sort of the long game, the long game theme here, that of how we are going forward in our daily lives, of trying to experience everything and be in tune with nature on the planet, and to ascend to a certain level, you know.
Yeah, and actually too, because the natal Pluto is at 27 degrees Capricorn. This is its journey also that we're doing on a huge scale. Very well put. Maybe we should jump to the next. Well, now we're back to our chart, just to refresh people, because we're going to look and see. Here's Pluto down at the very at
bottom
the
of the
IC.
chart.
Yeah, at the bottom of the chart, just entering that private area of our own roots. And then we have Mars up there in the 8th, still of our resources and exchange and deep secretive areas too.
And
okay.
how they're working is they're in a quincunx or an inconjunct. So they're in an adjustment phase.
Yes, they're juggling between each other, trying to find common ground, which in a sense they are. They're both wanting change, but they do it in different ways. One through, I think, the assertiveness of changing in action, which obviously has a result. And the other one of this deep mining process of psychological depth of hopefully that's the highest thing and not revenge, right?
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. So we have here Neptune, and I think also, because if we look at that chart, I'm going to here, what happened there? You can see that they are they're 7 degrees apart, but Jupiter is in retrograde and it's going to return to Pisces. So it's sitting in our 6th and 5th houses, which is our daily routine and manifestation of creative interests.
Right. And that Mars and Jupiter, Neptune are square to each other. So they're in an adjustment period also. So Jupiter retrograde at 29 Pisces, light breaking into many colors through a prism. The keynote is an analytical power of the mind necessary for the formation of life processes in their many aspects. Do you want to read the next one, Justin?
We're doing Jupiter, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the Pisces 30 degrees is a majestic rock formation resembling a face, is idealized by a boy who takes it as his ideal of greatness as he grows up, begins to look like it. So it's the power of clearly visualized ideals to mold the life of the visualizer.
That's good. I remember going through these Sabians before because, as we know, just to comment the obvious, Jupiter also is rather slow, but it is in that retrograde process. And so it's returning to these points that we've visited before back in, the spring. And so if it's familiar. So it's looking at 1 degrees Aries, a woman just risen from the sea. A seal is embracing her. And the keynote of that is emergence of new forms and of the potentiality of consciousness, which means all of these energies will be returned to as it finally goes back to its, I think it goes back in, it starts to return. I've got all the dates of when it goes back.
Well, and I just want to go back to the Pisces 29 of the prisms and the color. It's like, to me, that reminds me of looking at things from a different view. It's like, how could I look at this in a different view or listen to somebody describe it in a different way? It's being a little bit more open-minded.
Yeah, and I would agree, and I think it kind of speaks to what we see archetypically with these planets squaring, Mars being our drive, our mojo, our forward effort and movement, and it's in Gemini, and we know it's going through a little bit of pruning and needing to kind of see things from a different perspective, just like that 29 degrees in the Jupiter. But it's squaring Jupiter, which says, hey, I want to make sure things are going to go well here with Neptune, the collective, and let's start these new projects and let's grow. But it's going retrograded, so we're having to reevaluate something right now, the way we're thinking, the way we're communicating, and evaluating new projects, because we know Jupiter in Aries wants to start new projects and new things and get going. But it's kind of saying, well, before we kind of move into this change, we need to do some clearing of the hard drive, and prune and reevaluate maybe what we're starting in the new cycle. And that's kind of what I see with these squaring these planets.
That's excellent. All of this, and at the follow-up with a woman rising from the sea reminds me of Venus, as the mythology does include that, of course, she comes from the sea, and the fact that there's a lot of potential. We have a few minutes. Let's finish with, did we get to Neptune? Oh, Uranus. Well, let's see. Maybe we can do this pretty quick. Let's go back to the
chart.
Okay.
Because I want to mention about Mars also has a trine with the ascendant and Mercury, and it's also trine Saturn and Vesta. So we have an air grand trine. So it's like our thoughts, our information, and even though Mars is retrograde, Saturn just went direct yesterday, actually. So it's like there's all this information coming through. So it's not just that we have adjustments to make. It's like, yes, we have adjustments to make, but we can use the information that we can gain and gather to make great decisions and really find out new things. It's like it's really pushing us in that direction.
Beautiful. And
and we're not alone in it. We're back to the relationship. There's somebody there with us, helping us, and that was back to the chart. Just to kind of piggyback on what Liz is saying, we've got that Mars, even though it's retrograding and Jupiter's retrograding and it's reevaluating, there's a trine to that vertex point in Juno, which is saying, there's going to be some people there and relationships there to help us through this period.
Yep. And jumping into Saturn really fast, because we have about a minute, that energy that's in that trine, that flow of energy that's all in the mental air, that's really good from the top to the entrance of the ascendant, of unmasking. So really we are, and we may feel we needed that protection, but it's really moving along in a very positive way. It's finding out, okay, I think we're finished with all these slides. Thank you, Nathan. We can put those away.
And look forward to seeing everybody next month.
Yeah, indeed. This is a powerful eclipse. We're going to continue with this for, they say a couple of weeks, but if it touches your chart, which I think it has for all of us, I know that it's resonating with my chart a lot. We'll be reflecting on this story of bringing in more folks, right?
Okay, bye for now.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Justin.
All right.
We'll come back again with Archetypal Symbols. Check us out on the website. Follow us, subscribe, and we'll be returning with Justin Crockett Elsie and Liz Elizabeth Mouchette. Thank you.
Joining us on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests connect soul growth patterns with the energetic cycles of astrology. Be sure to tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic